Okay, right, here we are. Wednesday morning, coffee and chats, Ad Kelz. And yes, a little bit late. It's the day when your laptop decides to do it 2 minutes before due to go. So right, we're here anyway. Now, let's talk about how our emotions affect us in our decisions. That's the thing, right? Like we can get caught up in so much jazz and so much like stuff that like someone could send you an email and then it can then really affect you and then really then affect your decisions for the rest of the day. But how do we disconnect from that? How can we disconnect ourselves from that so then we can then keep moving forwards ourselves and that not allow us to disable us to keep us stopped there? Like, Kels, like, what's your thoughts? What's your thoughts on this?
So you're talking about reaction versus response. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. That's right. I'm not sure what happened there. Lost you a little bit. Also, it's very quiet where you are, on your mic. So that's the thing, right? Yeah, that's what we're talking about. So, how do like, how would you say to a client? Like, what would you say to a client that comes to you that's just like that?
I think I just do exactly what we do. So if we have a certain situation where we feel triggered via an email or a text or maybe a client message or maybe an inbound mail from LinkedIn, something that necessarily doesn't feel good to see, I think the first thing to do is just recognize how you're feeling in your body and put the tools down for a minute. There's nothing worse than replying straight away when you're hot-headed, when you're spiked, when you're all up in your feelings, and then you come back to it an hour later and think, why did I do that? Whereas if you can just see that thing come in and feel that you're triggered and be like, okay, this isn't a good space for me, put it down, walk away, go and distract yourself and come back to it, then you're going to reply from a calm and more level-headed space rather than reaction space and then regret it.
And that's the thing, right? Yeah, it's very like what you said. Is you've hit the nail on the head, sort of thing, straight away. That's the thing, right? So many people, when they, like when they do get those emails, they don't give themselves that time, do they? And why? Like, what is it? Like, what is it about people, right, and not giving themselves that time to just to breathe? Is it the fact that because everything's so fast paced now? Like, what do you think that is?
I think it comes down to feeling a threat, fight or flight. Someone comes in and just naturally think, I need my voice, I need to speak, I need to defend myself, I need to put my cards on the table, and comes to a place of wanting to be heard. So we feel like in order to do that, we have to respond straight away. It's a bit like when you talk about if like people are all in a room together, it's like those who want to be the loudest in the room aren't necessarily the ones who are always being heard, but it comes from a place of not feeling safe in your body. So I think that is the deal a lot of the time. We're triggered, we don't feel comfortable, we don't feel safe. So it's like, I need to speak now, I need to be heard, I need to do this. Whereas, and we all do it, and it's really hard. But if we can just recognize and even just do ourselves a real simple countdown, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, take a deep breath. Be like, and recognize, be like, okay, I'm feeling triggered. And ask yourself the question, why am I triggered? Write it down. Talk it through. And even if you're just by yourself, talk it through, write it down. Sometimes for me, just going for a walk, going off for a swim. I know we don't always have the ability to do that, but particularly if you are in the office and an email's come in or a call's come in, just put it down. Even if you can just go outside, get some fresh air, take 3 to 5 deep breaths. Be like, what would the higher version of me do in this situation? How would I like to respond if I was reading this back in like 24 hours? What is it I'd like to see?
And I've been muted. So yes, let me just say that all again. It's like what you just said there is exactly true. It's like you need to be, you do need to take some, some breaths, like some deep breaths, because what happens is that when things happen, when we get spikes like that fight or flight mode happens, it takes us out of that logical part of our brain. It takes us out of our logical thinking, and it gets us into our emotional part of the brain, our reptilian brain. Okay. Now, with that part of that brain, all that thinks about is running out of from a rock, and am I going to be able to get over to a rock before someone kills me, or can I get some food? That's all it is survival. That's all it does, and that's the thing that happens is that when we go into that state of like shock or fight or flight, we're not thinking logically. We're not taking that time to actually think. All we're doing is that we're just looking for that survival. Right, I'm going to either punch that person in the nose or I'm going to run and hide. That's basically what we're doing, right? But then we then deal with things differently. So like some people then, after the come down, they then go to alcohol. They then go to food. That's a common one with clients, is that they then have to then go for like chocolate or high fat or high carb to get that release. That's that release of that feel good. Yeah, that's what it is, right? Whereas what they actually need to do is that they actually just need to breathe. And by taking, like a good, few minutes of just some really deep breaths in through the nose, actually then connects us back to that logical part of the brain. And then when we're in that logical part of the brain, we actually then start to think properly. We can then think of situations and solutions for that situation. We can then think of the better way to write that email, the better way to then respond to that person, instead of just reacting and running off and then trying to punch that person in the nose. That's what it is. Instead of getting angry and then being stressed for the rest of the day, it's like, hang on, just breathe. Like no one's going to die in that 5 minutes that you spend of taking some deep breaths. In fact, no one is, right? And that's the thing that we forget to do, is because it's hard to see logically when that logical part of the brain has been disabled, because we're now in the emotional part. And that's where it makes sense, right? So, that's what and that's what it is. That is what we want, right? So, like, I want you guys to think of an example of like you recently when this has happened. The people watching this, think of an example of when this has happened to you recently, and how did you respond to that, or did you react to that? Did you go off of the handle and be like, like start shouting, screaming, or go in attack mode? And then what did you then do after that come down? Was it then they did then go for food? Did you then go for food, or did you go for alcohol? Or did you punish yourself with some language? Oh, you're a failure, or you're so shit, blah 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 blah, that sort of stuff. Once you've worked that out, it's like, okay, cool. Well, how do I want to feel going forwards if that happens again? How do I want to feel? How do I want to respond? What would be the better way to respond? Because also what you need to remember is that once you then go into that fight or flight, guess what it's going to do to the other person? Makes them go in it as well, doesn't it? And then what then happens?
Punch up.
The punch up, literally, right? There's going to be arguments. There's going to be rows. There's going to be two people in their reptilian brain. It's not going to, it's not, there's no communication, is there? There's no communication going on. So if we can then get people back into their logical part of the brain as quickly as possible, who knows what could then be achieved? Right? You get this?
I get this.
Now, and that's the thing, right? And that's, like we're all guilty of it. Like we're all guilty of going into our reptilian brain. And the fact is that we are always going to be going back into it. Like there's no way for us to then bypass it and never go into it, because it's always going to happen. Like it's there for a reason, because it wants us to survive. That's what it's there for. It's the survival part of the brain. It's like, shit, get out, get to safety straight away. But the fact is, it's not logical. It doesn't realise that we are still safe. It doesn't realise that an email isn't going to threaten our lives. An email is just a communication for us. That's all it is. It's not going to jump out the screen and start killing us, is it? And that's the thing, right? It realises that. So it then just starts to run away. So we're always going to go back into it, but we then need to remember, how do we act? How does our behaviours play out when this happens? Is this making sense?
You're doing to me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, have you got anything to add? Anything to add to that?
No, not really. I think you've covered it. Like I've said, what I think the best situation to do when you feel like that, acknowledge it, breathe, move away from it, tools down, whether you need half an hour, 24 hours, do what you need to do to respond to it. It's going to make you feel your best, your calmest.
So that's it, right? So, how do you personally come out of this? How do you get out of that part of your brain and get calm?
For me, it's going to be movement. So whether I can just go and get a little walk in, or go and get in the pool, moving my body, moving my state, moving my energy from a stale one, from a frustrated one, because we are energy. So when I get in motion, that's starting to turn the wheels a little bit. Then I can move forwards. And if I can do that via a walk, for example, I'm going to start to feel good anyway, because it feels like I'm doing something positive. Moving forwards, so I can start to think forwards. Think, what would be the best thing to do here? Right, okay, cool. Then I can come back to it and go again. So I think time out is key. It's just like when you and I have an argument. I feel it get heated and I'm like, right, time out. It's having that level of communication with whoever it might be that you feel in your firing line or threat. It's like, okay, I need time out, I need space.
That's it, right? What do you mean we argue? We never argue, Kelz. Right? It's
Sure.
paradise, right?
Sure.
No, but it's true, right? No, but it's true, that's what you need to do. You need to find out what works for you. For you, it's movement.
Some
for other people,
it's journaling.
Exactly. Some people it's going to be journaling. Some people it's going to be some breath work. It's about finding the right thing for you to then get you back into it. But the quickest way is to change your state. Whether it be some breath work or even a cold shower, to change your state. So for you, when you say you go swimming, that's what you're doing as well, because you're changing the body's state. You're going from a standing state to a moving state through exercise, but also you're changing the state through the water as well. So that's really, really good as well. That's what's really good. Um, anything to add on the subject?
No,
No?
I think we covered it, Ad.
Cool. So is there anything that you want to share with them about anything in general?
Well, I think that's a big one, and I think it always, away from that, like reaction versus response, is also looking at, and it's come up a few times with clients lately, is like data versus drama. It's a huge one. It can trigger us because we're like, shut up, data versus drama, blah, blah, blah. But, again, coming back to how emotionally we can attach ourselves to things, but if we can separate that, like if we talk about our clients with it, the data is doing your measurements, doing your weight, taking your photos, tracking your food, all these components. The drama is, oh my God, that's not what I wanted. Oh my God. And all this, which can completely throw us off track and make us not want to do it. But if we can just focus on the data, it's okay, like what, if we talk about weight, because obviously that's what we do, if you can just separate the fact that, you're a weight that you might not want to be, but by doing the action points, that's going to move you forwards, see progress, start to see results, so you start to feel better. That's what you need to focus on. But the drama can just come in and sabotage with the emotional part of the brain, which then what? We stay stuck, we stay still, we can even go backwards. Data versus drama is a huge one. And even just remembering those two words for whatever your situation could be, whether it is an email trigger, whether it is a text communication, like from a friend, family member, or the data of the progress that you want with weight, or maybe the data it is in business, like doing your numbers, looking at your quarter and thinking, it's not what I wanted. If you can data versus drama, then you can put it into action steps, which is going to create movement, which is going to get you moving forward, seeing results and feeling better.
That's it, right? It's and that's what it is. It's when you, like, so many people say, oh, that's not what I wanted. I didn't want, like, this isn't the result that I wanted. Or I wanted a bigger result, whether it be like income, whether it be a bigger weight loss result or whatever, and then people then get, like we say, drama, they dramatize it, they then get emotional about it. Well, then let's look at the numbers. If you're, like we're saying, is if you're not tracking, if you're not following the data, then there's no reason, then there's a reason why you aren't where you want to be, because there's no data. You need that data to move forward, so then see whether you're on track or not, which then, like we say, refers us back to that reptilian brain. It is that you're not the weight loss you want to be, right? So you start to react. Oh, this is BS. It's not working. Blah 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 blah. Then you get into your reptilian brain. You're all dramatizing it all. You're going to win an Oscar from your theatrics and all of that sort of stuff. But then well, let's actually look at what you've actually been doing, right? Have you been exercising? Have you been drinking water? Have you been going to bed at the right time? Have you been eating your protein? Have you been eating regular meals? Yeah. Well, show me. No, I have been doing it. No, show me the data. But that's the thing, right? If people don't follow the data, then there's no wonder why people don't get the results they want. It's a bit like, it's like people that manifest things, right? Law of attraction, right? See, law of attraction is great. Like, law of attraction does work. But there's one, if you do the action. You can't have the law of attraction without action. So that's the thing, is that people need to remember, is that they have to be doing the actions. You can't just wish it. Like, you can't just sit down on a mountain and meditate and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to get this amazing body and life and blah, 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 blah. and then wonder why you're still sat on a mountain and you still don't have anything. You know, like, you've got to do the work. You know, you've got to track it. You've got to keep moving forwards. You know, and that's the thing, right? Is that people don't realise that. They think, oh yeah, but I really want it. Well, your actions aren't aligned. You know, you've got to do sometimes the things that are uncomfortable to move you forwards. But then you also need to track it to make sure that those things that you're doing are aligned with what you want to get to.
But I think that's a big thing you said there. People say, oh, I really want it, like I really want to lose the weight, but the actions don't match what they're saying. So sometimes it's just stripping it all apart. Before we get into any sort of action, so you want to be here and you really, really want it. Why? Oh, you know, because I just want to feel better. But why? Why? And sometimes people get really frustrated by this, and it gets like brings all this anger to the surface. You know, think about it. Like when your kids do it, when they're curious and they want to learn. But why? But why? But why? And you're like, ah. But if you do the same with an adult, okay, so you really want it, okay, but your actions aren't showing that. So why do you want it? I want to feel better. Okay, why? Because if I feel better, I have more confidence. Okay, and why? So if we keep peeling the layers, the frustration comes within people because it gets personal, it gets meaningful, and also you're becoming vulnerable because you're starting to take those layers off and actually be really honest with yourself. Why do you want it? And that's where the emotion comes in, which we don't always want the emotion, but sometimes we need to have that breakdown and we need to have that clarity and we need to have that moment when it really pulls on ourselves. Think, that's it. That's the magic. That's why I want it. Now I'm going to do the action because now I've just actually said that out loud. And maybe it's something you haven't said out loud, vocalized for your adult life. Maybe your health and weight isn't where it was when you were like 17, kicking a ball around with your mates on the field. And, you know, life happened, work happened, marriage, kids, mortgage, layer upon layer. So when you start to get personal, and understandably there's emotion, but also sometimes that makes us angry because we have that realization of, shit, why have I let myself get here? But the good thing is that anger propels us forward. So I'm not saying we need to do it all the time. I'm not saying we always need to get really emotional, but we do need to have that awareness and the breakdown to then think, that's it. That's why I'm going to drive forwards. This is why I want it. And that helps you put the action steps in place to get to where you want. That's
exactly. And that's you.
Yeah.
And that's you. Yeah, that's true. Very, very true. So, look, I actually think this is a good point to end today's call, being honest. I know it's been a short one, but it's been straight to the point, and I'm being honest, there's been a lot of stuff covered. So people watching this, you know, like how to overcome things when you get triggered and why we get triggered, and, you know, the part of the brain that's responsible for that, and what part of the brain we need to get back into. But then also realize that we need to differentiate data over drama. Yeah, and then the action steps for us to then do that as well. So, Kelz, what's your final words? Any final words for today?
In a recap.
Or just anything, yeah.
No, I'm going to say, like, in a recap, any of those moments where you know that you feel stress or triggers, just take that breather space for you. And also, it's not necessarily like, you know, it's really quick, it's really simple for people when they feel that way, is to react by an action, by doing something, eat it away, drink it away, do something unhealthy. It's like if you can just sit in it for a minute, allow yourself to sit in it, sit in that feeling, take the breath, ask the questions for yourself to move forwards with a healthier response.
Boom. Drops mic. That's it. Cool. Nice one. Well, cheers, Kelz. And thank you guys for watching. Let us know what your takeaways from this call were, this video were. let us know in the comments. Also share it. Like if there's anyone that you feel could gain some value from this, please share it with them. And next week, we will see you again next week. And also, we'll be speaking to Dave very, very soon. He's one of the ex-clients in the Back in Charge Blueprint. So, guys, have a good one. And I'll speak to you all later.